of Imam Hussein. Even though in the Salafist ideology, the caliphate is plays the final decision making in the Muslim Ummah. Na'udhu billah, if Yazid is the Khalifa and he says Imam Hussein to do bay'ah, in the Wahhabi mind, well, he's the Khalifa, it's Shar'i, it's legitimate. So therefore, they would say, even the Salafists would say, Na'udhu billah, that Imam Hussein fighting against Yazid, they would say is not Shar'i, because they think that the Khilafat of Yazid is Shar'i, is legitimate. Of course, the Muslim world does not do this. Even Sunnis, we have Sunni books that wrote that Yazid, there's la'nat on him. Even though he's the Khalifa, some Sunnis like Suyuti and other historians, there's actually a book that Ibn Jawzi has about Ar-Rad al-Muta'assib al-Anid. This is a rad on people that do not allow Yazid to be la'an. He actually wrote a book on this, that Yazid should be la'an. Ahlul Sunnah say this. But Salafis are so extreme, and this is the mindset of him, that they would say that no, Yazid has the final haqqas with Yazid, for example. So then he starts defending Ahlul Bayt, love of Ahlul Bayt. He starts saying our Shia brothers. We don't hear that. Shia brothers. In saying that, defending Hussein ibn Ali and calling him Shaheed and martyr and loving Imam Hussein alayhi salam. With reciting one salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Just one. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If salawat can do this for a Wahhabi Shaykh, Salafi Shaykh, can it do such a thing for us when we are crying and loving Imam Hussein and we're here for him? Can one salawat give me that dua, answer that dua that I have? Of course it can. Of course it can. This is the power that it has. So therefore, this final speech that I have tonight, remember how important this tawassul and beseeching Imam Hussein alayhi salam is. That's very effective. And if you ever run into problems in your lives, never forget that all these problems are resolved with the love and attachment of Ahlul Bayt. Tonight I'm going to be talking about, and some of the questions that I saw was about despair. Because we live in a time period where people are very sad, and we see the rise in addiction, rise in drugs, rise in suicide. We need to figure out, one of the lessons that Imam Hussein alayhi salam taught us is to be hopeful. And if you look at the Battle of Karbala, all the factors of despair were there for Imam Hussein alayhi salam to give up, because he's tremendously outnumbered. 72 against 30,000, 72 against 10,000. Actually, in the day of Ashura, at the end in the afternoon, when he rides his horse into the army, he is one person, he is all alone. But do you ever see once that Imam Hussein alayhi salam is thinking of going back, of retreating, of going back to Medina? Never. Do you ever see him have despair and say that no way? Actually, you see in the day, one of the morning, in one of the parts of the day of Ashura or night of Ashura, that Imam Hussein alayhi salam has an interesting dua. And that dua is a dua of hope. It says, Allahumma anta thiqati fi kulli karban wa raja'i fi kulli shadda. My Lord, you are supportive in every difficulty and my hope in every severity. That you are my hope, Allah. So how did Imam Hussein alayhi salam bear and never have despair with such calamity? How did he control all this stress, all this responsibilities that were on his shoulder? Because he was hopeful. Dear brother, dear sister, when you are hopeful, that is the engine, that is what causes you to move. In 1950s, there was the science experiment conducted with rats, wild rats and domestic rats. They very cruelly put them in water and they let them drown. If today maybe you do this science experiment, they'll probably take the guy in handcuffs or whatever, I don't know. So you put the rats and hopefully they weren't from New York. They just put the rats, and there they drowned. They put them to drown, and it took about 3 minutes, 15 minutes. That's it. Rats, I didn't know. They can't really swim, so they drown very fast. So 3 minutes. There's ikhtilaf with the ulama. Some say 3 minutes. Some say 15 minutes. Then they actually took another group of rats, wild and domestic, and put them in the last moment that they're about to drown, grab their little paws or grab their little hands and save them. I don't know how they did it. I'm just saying they saved them from drowning the last part of their life. And then after recuperating, put them back in the water. How long do you think, and this is a famous experiment, how long do you think the rats swam for? So we said the first group was 3 or 15. But those that person was instilling hope, was putting hope in rats, how long do you think they swam for? Anybody? 20 minutes? 20 minutes? Okay. Anybody else from the brothers? What is the difference? It's a rat, right? You just save it once and then you drown it again. Brothers, one number. 30 minutes. Actually, in this, there's not ikhtilaf from what I read. 60 hours. 60 hours. You can look at the science experiment. It's in the 1950s. The rats swam for 60 hours because in their mind, they were saved once. They thought, okay, I was saved once, keep swimming. Maybe somehow I'm going to be saved. Maybe somehow I'm going to keep swimming. And maybe animals can't really keep track of time. But it shows you that hope, how effective hope. And if you look at everyone that is successful today, either in religion or in the world, in business, in their profession, all of them had hope. When a person goes to medical school, they have hope. It's hard sometimes. If they don't have hope, they're going to quit. So they keep struggling until they graduate. Students that are studying, sometimes you think it's so hard. SAT scores, they look at SAT 2 scores. Now they want me to start a business too at the age of 16 and be a billionaire before Princeton accepts me, for example. It's getting harder and harder, but they have hope. And they keep, trying extracurricular activities. They start a company up. They get good grades. It causes them to have hope. But when they have hope, it causes them to strive. And if you could look at all of our aspects, from religion to, exercise, to health, to sports, when a person has hope, they keep struggling. So tonight, I'm going to be talking about the factors of despair. What causes despair? Because if a person doesn't have hope, if a person has despair, they will be ruined. Imam Hussein a.s. had all the factors of despair. There were thirst in Ashura, right? He was with his children, with his family. He didn't want them to see what was going to happen, for example. He was outnumbered. He was betrayed by the Kufans. How sad is that the Kufans write thousands of letters and then you see them in the army to fight you. All these factors were there. But not once do you see Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Actually, he was the opposite. He gave hope to everyone else. When everyone else was weak, sometimes in the, there's different shuhada, we have Karbala, those that were weaker, they were turned back to Imam Hussein alayhi salam and they would become stronger. Imam Hussein fought so much. I apologize for saying this, but in the Maqtal it says in the day of Karbala, he was like a porcupine, it says. So many arrows hit his holy body that became like a porcupine. He was hit with so many swords. Then the Maqtal says when we'd come to Zayn al-Abidin and to see him, that every time he would breathe in and out from his armor, blood would come out. Blood would come out of his body. But yet he still fought. And he was brave and never let go. So this resilience is from what? From hope. Is from the hope that Imam Hussein had for Allah. 5 factors, if I have time, 6 factors of despair that I want to talk about tonight to make us more hopeful. If you have any of these factors, remove it from your life immediately. The first factor that will cause you despair is sin, is spiritual failure. God forbid. Before this happens, before that sin happens, remember, God forbid, if somebody commits a sin, it's Shahr Ramadan, and they eat food and they shouldn't have. For example, there's a haram food, they shouldn't have saw that. Maybe it's a haram sight to look at. It was something that was haram to hear, like backbiting of someone. That crushes someone. That causes despair. Sin itself causes despair. It causes that darkness in the heart. It causes failure because that person is saying, I failed. I couldn't control myself. But at the same time, so we're trying to scare ourselves from sinning. But at the same time, we understand that there is that forgiveness, that hope and forgiveness that always exists. So we should be afraid of sinning. But if, God forbid, we ever sin, we are hopeful. Because Allah will forgive all sins. Not only does He forgive sins, in Quran it mentions, if a person sins and is strong enough to come back and repent, that sin will become a hasana, will be converted to a good action. That's why some of the scholars say, may inshallah our repentance be accepted, because from here to the arsh of God we'll have good deeds. Because we had so many bad deeds that if they are actually forgiven and repented, we have so many good deeds. So therefore, the first thing is being afraid of sinning. Being afraid of Allah and the hudud Allah, that He is our Lord, He is our Mawla. That if I sin against Him, then that's going to be the first factor of despair. But at the same time, that if I have sins, I come to the Majlis of Imam Hussein, I come to places like the center, ask, or at home, wherever you are, Allah forgive me. The second factor of despair is failure. That was a type of spiritual failure, but failure in our own lives. Have you ever taken an exam and you failed it miserably? Sometimes you might even cry because you feel like a loser, for example. Really. Sometimes you take a driving test and you're wondering, they take forever to give you the answer when they're done. You don't know, they failed. They just say, give this paper there. They don't even tell you, did you pass or fail? But then you find out, oh, I failed. Terrible. You make yourself feel terrible. Then you think, I can't even drive anymore. Or getting a speeding ticket sometimes. Or when it comes to, for example, a business. When it comes to a business, I started out a business and I failed. Now I'm bankrupt. What should I do then? So the second factor of despair that we have to understand properly is that it is okay to fail. Even the spiritual part, if a person sins, it is okay. Now what are you going to do? I'm going to ask for forgiveness. But if it comes to this world, I'm going to learn from my mistake, right? I'm going to learn from my mistake. It's an interesting story that a person by the name of Abu Tayyar comes to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, Ma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Comes to Imam Sadiq, and actually he failed in the business world. He was afraid to do business again. He lost all his money. Whatever business he did or whatever, he failed tremendously. He comes to the Imam. This might happen, might have happened to us. So let's see what the Imam did. He comes to the Imam. The Imam asks him, do you have a store? In the story it says, yes, it's closed. I know some businessmen, some big international traders, that when the stock or commodity they used to trade, import, or it lost so much value, they say, I'm more afraid of this commodity than a snake. I don't even want to think about it anymore because I lost so much money. I lost everything. But the Imam tells him to go back, instructs him to go back and do business. You failed, it's okay. But learn from your mistakes. But now this way, come back and get spiritual help as well. Make this dua, توجهت بلا حول مني ولا قوة. Say this, ولكن بحولك, I put my attention not to the own powers that are inside me, but to the powers that are inside God, or the powers that God has. وقوتك فارزقني اللهم فارزقني من فضلك الواسع رزقا كثيرا طيبا. Ask Allah first. Ask Allah, help me, give me rizq. That's what? Wasi', a lot of rizq. You see, in this dua, you don't see that the Imam Salih is teaching that having lots of income is bad. No, we talked about spending. That spending or attachment. But having lots of income is good. It's actually teaching them, give me lots of rizq, kathir, lots of money. Make me a billionaire. It's fine, right? I'll be a billionaire, help people out. So he comes and he does this and prays and does salat, how Imam Sadiq wants, and tries again with a different manner. He learns from his mistake a little bit differently. And he becomes so successful. From there, he starts building other houses, homes for himself. Another example that we have in history of a person that was failed first and then he had success was a Persian emperor by Nadir Shah Afshar. He was actually one of the most powerful, if you ever look at Persian history, one of the top 5 rulers, and he was in the 17th century, that had the most amount of power. One was him. And he was at battle with who? The Turks, the Ottoman Empire. He's trying to capture the holy lands, the areas, for example, the Atabat, Samarra, for example, Karbala, Najaf, and especially Baghdad. He goes to war with them. Himself, he would fight. He goes, and again, I'm not trying to say that this king was necessarily a good person, because there's things about his history. I'm just giving you an example. And don't blame me and say I'm supporting the Shahs of Iran, because Ayatollah Subhani brought this in his book. Don't say I should support the Shahs. Ayatollah Jafar Subhani brought this in his book. So he attacks, and actually his horse, they say, is hit with an arrow and falls, and there's blood everywhere. They think that the Shah, that the leader, the general, is dead now. So people run barefooted. They leave everything, their weapons, everything they have. They leave it to the Ottomans, and it was an embarrassing defeat for the Persians. But what does he do then? He left all his military weapons or whatever. They just ran back. He plans, and he thinks of, and what we're trying to say is, you look and you examine at what you failed at, and you try again. You try again. You keep trying. So he comes back, but this time he has a different strategy. He's going to get more reinforcements. Brings up reinforcements of, they say, 200,000 army. And there he comes back. The same one that was, looked foolish, in the books of history for losing this way. He comes back, besieges Baghdad, forces the Ottomans to give back that territory that they took from the Persians. And if you look, military rulers were like this. Scientists, inventors, students, ulama, all of them, everyone is natural for them to fail. And this happens. I know people sometimes, even with one marriage, for example. And I said, I don't support divorce. But if it's emergency, it happens. But then the second marriage, they failed the first time, they feel like. It's not really failing, it's sometimes incompatibility. But they kept going, says, okay, I will try this again. And then they get remarried and they have kids and they live a good life. So whatever you think, if you ever have failure, and we might have failure in our lives, you learn from that, analyze it. Don't just do it again right afterwards. Analyze and study and look at what the problem was. We go now to the third thing that causes despair, and this is a problem that plagues our community: comparison. Did anyone ever compare you to your cousin, or to your brother, or to your sister, or to the other brother in the masjid? Someone that does adhan nicely, and your parents come and say, why don't you do adhan that way? Or for example, they recite Quran well, or they're always in the masjid. They compare people. Even as children, one of the problems we have is a child begins to speak earlier than the other, and it's like, well, how come this one isn't speaking? Child begins to walk earlier than the other. Why isn't he or she walking? And they keep comparing this with this. Someone has 1 kid, 2 kids. Why don't you have children yet? They're married, for example. You're not married. Why aren't you married? Comparison. One of the problems that plagues our communities is comparison. The brother-in-law, one brother-in-law is mashallah so wealthy, the other one doesn't have much money. And the two sisters, they compare, They say this one, look at that one, so much smarter, he's much better. Look at the other one. One of the ways that we can separate ourselves, and we have to tell our community, stop comparing. Because each child, especially I was looking at this, each child when they're born, they will walk whenever they need to walk. You can't say, one, you should walk earlier and tell that 10-month-old, why are you at this step? Do some push-ups, for example. You can't force that on these kids. Yes, you could read to them and help them speak earlier, but some kids naturally, if you look at our culture, a lot of times they never read to kids, and everyone here is speaking. I don't know, most of us, did they always read to us every night, for example. It's good to read for your kids, but it's not the only cause of someone speaking. They learn from communities. They have traits within. Some kids, they grow up faster than others. So let's stop comparing. Sometimes we compare to someone else's wealth. I'm working overtime all the time. I'm always early at work, coming in the subway, the metro, late at night. But this other brother, mashallah, he's always in Karbala, he's always in Najaf. Sometimes he does trips to Hawaii, he goes to other places, he's always on vacation. I didn't even visit Imam Hussein once. And I compare. Do not compare. Each person, Allah is giving you like a medicine, your dosage. When He gives you looks, He gives you your looks for you. Did I create how I look like? No, Allah created me when I was in the rahim of my mother. Does Allah, that rizq that you have, in the same way Allah gives that to you? Yes, one factor you're responsible, but the other factor, it's up to Allah to decide how much rizq to give you. Who to make a billionaire, who to make a millionaire, who to make poor, who to make rich, who to make healthy, who to be, again, I have factors that I can change this. But Allah is deciding this according to my test. So the way that we can resolve this issue of comparison and always looking at others is to view those blessings that God has given me as specific for my test. And that's all it is. Did anyone here have a Scantron test with a number 2 pencil? A sharpened number 2 pencil? You love those tests. Did you ever feel attachment to the Scantron paper? No. Why? Because it's a tool for you to be tested. You give it in and goes in the machine and comes out, inshallah. Either all A's or all F's, whatever comes out. But it comes out, it's just a test, it's a tool for you to be tested. In the same way, whatever things I own, whatever things I have, one of our scholars says, it's like that test, that Scantron exam, for example. Because he's giving you that wealth to test you with it and watch you. Okay, now I'm going to send someone his way. He's wealthy? Okay, I'm going to send someone his way. Masjid needs help. Will you help? No, I will not help. A person, I need help. Let's help this, earthquake happened here. I don't know. Some disaster happened there. Will you help? No, I'm too busy. Well, Allah is testing you with that will. In the day of judgment, that person wishes, I didn't have money. And then another person we tested, like that Scantron, with faqr and poverty. I know some of the maraja. I spoke to one of his son. I don't want to say who right now, but I can tell you after, that he says we were in such poverty, and my father was a marja taqlid. He never got wujuhat or khums that he has permission to use for himself. He never used it. And we were in complete poverty, but yet that was one of the most pious scholars of our time period, one of them. But his rizq was low. He lived the life of poverty. Even when he slept, he said, my dad, when he sleeps in the afternoon, he would sleep on the chair like this, not even in a bed. Zahid. But his test was a test of poverty. Does that mean that Allah loves him less? No, Allah gave him instead knowledge. Allah gave him rank. Everyone knows, if I mention his name, everyone here knows of him, for example. So everybody's test is there. Stop comparing. Somebody, he was brought up in a different family than yours. Somebody didn't even have a family to be brought up in. Don't compare. I said, why are you behaving this way? Just, as they say, be so in tune or analyze yourself so much that you have no time to judge others or talk bad about others or compare with others. Just look at yourself and look at the ni'mas that Allah has given you. Look at all the good things that Allah has given you and be thankful and be grateful. If you think of all the ni'mas, all the miracles, sometimes people say that when Allah answers your prayer, buy a souvenir, put something in place of that miracle that Allah gave you when you answered your dua. So you always remember, Allah, He did shafa, for this family member I had. Allah, He got into that school I always wanted to. It was a miracle. My grades were horrible. I don't know how I got into this college, for example. But Allah's a miracle. Or I landed this job. I didn't even have a degree. But now I'm working as, a very professional in a field that only PhDs work in. So remember that Allah's miracles, remember Allah's grace, and don't compare others. The last that causes despair, we'll talk about. Fourth, is living a mechanical life. And maybe in big cities we feel this more, that life becomes too mechanical sometimes, too routine. You wake up, take a shower, eat your breakfast, brush your teeth, inshallah, go to work, smell nice, alhamdulillah, or then you come back, you have your lunch at work, you come back. It's just same thing, same people. Hey, at work. Hey, guys, how you doing? Same thing every day. Come back. Mechanical routine. How long is this gonna last? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. No vacation, nothing. You're just working. Same thing. This would cause us despair. But is this what we're meant for? Just to work, just to study, just to work, and nothing else. If that's true. It's like asking a person that's going to a gas station, where are you going? He says, gas station. And then you say, okay, after you go to this gas station, what are you going to do? I'm going to use more fuel and then go to the other gas station. Okay, what about after that? I'm going to use some fuel and go to another gas station. It's just repeating. One of the reasons why society is so sad right now is because we're not alive. What causes life? Tawheed. The hadith says Tawheed, monotheism causes life. Spirituality causes life. Beautiful verse in the Quran mentions, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu istajibu lillahi wa lirrasul. O you who believe. It's actually a khitab to us. O you who believe. Answer the call of Allah and His Messenger, إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ, when they call you, upon what? What did they call upon you? Who knows the rest of this verse? إِذَا دَعَاكُمْ لِمَا يُحْيِيكُمْ, when they call upon that which gives you life. They're saying, Ya ayyuha alladhina, obviously these people are alive, their hearts are beating, their brains are working. It says, answer the call of Allah and the Rasul that gives you life, that makes you awake, that your spirit is now alive. Brothers and sisters, we physically are alive, but spiritually we're dead. Spiritually we're dead because of that mechanic lifestyle that we have, because of that separation from Allah, who is Al-Khoei, who is alive. We are dead. So therefore, you see, our teacher actually said this ancient story, or the story that people would visit. This person came to a village and he saw people that they're on their graves, the day they're born, the day they died was very short. And their lives are very short, maybe 10 years of life, maybe 20 years of life, 30 years of life. And he asked, how come everyone here died so early? And they say, in this town, we don't count their physical birth. We count their spiritual birth. How many years were they spiritual alive? How many years were they religious? Dear brother, dear sister, do you feel that when you worship God that you are alive? Do you feel when you come to the Majlis of Imam Hussein that you're alive? Yes, That is hayat. Look at the narrations. I'm going to share some more hadith about this so it becomes clear. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. If I ask you right now, what element, what in the world gives life to everything, what would you answer? When you are searching for life in other planets, what are you searching for? Water. Imam Sadiq mentions this. Quran mentions this. It says, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. And that everything, Allah says, and we have made in water everything that is alive. And today when we want to search for life, we search for water. أَفَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ فَكَمَا Imam Sadiq says, أَحْيَا بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ مِنَ النَّعِيمِ الدُّنْيَا. Just everything that is of the ni'mah and blessings of this world, it is created from water. بِرَحْمَتِهِ وَفَضْلِهِ كَذَلِكَ بِرَحْمَتِهِ وَفَضْلِهِ جَعَلَ حَيَاةَ الْقَلْبِ. Also, the heart, the living heart needs this though. What do you think the living heart needs? What gives it life? Bitta'at. It is alive with obedience of Allah. Just how everything you see today, if you go to a desert, and we saw this in California when there's lots of raining, they said we got, I don't know, in a few weeks we got a year's worth of rain. Recently in some areas in one day the hurricane came, 2 days we got enough rain for the entire year. You see greenery started coming in the deserts and different areas. Everything green because of water. But in this tradition, just how there's a comparison with water giving life to land, that ta'ah and obedience of God gives life to your heart. Making Allah your Mawla, making God your Lord, and not your Lord desires your Lord, not your boss your Lord. You go to work, you work hard, but because Allah wants you, the entire day I'm, wondering what will make God happy. How can I serve Him? How can I be an abd? How can I be a slave of God? Sometimes, this word slave, they don't like to translate as slave. In Christianity, I was actually watching this, that a priest was mentioning, or a speaker was saying that the translation of servant has been done, for example, instead of slave. Because of the history, for example, that, one is, slavery was something terrible, so people don't like to say the word slave. But higher than this, the reason is people really don't even like to use that word slave. When I say you're a slave of God, they're like, what? Well, I say servant, that sounds nicer, right? Because a slave doesn't own anything. The slave doesn't have anything. A servant has something. Slave is lower. But he's saying that actually in the Bible, 100 times that it's been translated is wrong as servant. But it should be slave. And we say that our Rasul is a slave. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. First, he is his slave, then he's his messenger. Slave, he has nothing, is complete poverty. Everything he has, his existence, everything he has, even though he's the best creation ever. But he has nothing, he's just a shadow from, the possessor of the shadow. So therefore, you see that life is given to us by obedience of God. And if you want to kill your heart, God forbid, do haram. Do haram, that qalb as-salim, that intact heart will die. You cannot see God anymore. You cannot feel religion anymore. You cannot enjoy religion anymore with haram. But when you see those pure individuals, that they had stayed away from even things that might be haram, you see what a beautiful, enjoying life that they have. And you come to this conclusion that if I ask you this question, should I enjoy my religion, what would you answer? Is it religion has joy for me? You say yes. Religion, and what you do is you taste a little bit of that religion, that little bit of that tawheed. You say, that salat was beautiful. Those tears I cried for Imam Hussein was beautiful. I want more of it. I want to go more for ziyarah. I want to do more ta'at, obey God even more, until I satisfy myself. But you won't be satisfied spiritually. So therefore, in conclusion, the last factor of despair, the fourth, is that when you live a mechanical life, there will be despair of it, as you see in countries that have turned away from God. But as true believers, the more you stay away from haram, you'll begin loving God, and you'll get a joy that is not from this world. An irreplaceable joy that money cannot buy anymore. That you cannot ever go anywhere in this world and find it. It can only happen in the spiritual realm. I don't know if you ever had a broken heart and you sincerely cry to God in such a night, and you have this connection to God and you feel His presence, and you say, this is incomparable to anything. I can talk more about this, but time is running out. The last thing I want to say, I usually end my lecture series with this, is we as followers of Ahlul Bayt actually should always have hope because of the belief of Imam Mahdi, the last thing. Because Mahdawiyat or Mahdism means hope. Mahdism means that eventually, even though there's injustice in this world, people have been oppressed severely in this world. But at the end, what will happen to this world? The end, the world will be inherited by the righteous. Imam Mahdi and Prophet Isa alayhi salam, they will come back and they will free the world from oppression, from poverty, from sickness, and from ignorance, and from worshipping of the self to worshipping of God. The world will be very beautiful. I advise you to read and research how the Mahdi government will be like. Look at Shia sources, look at Sunni sources. People will look for charity, to give charity to someone, but everyone will have. People will be so safe that in the middle of the night, they'll travel long distances at night in darkness, and everyone will be safe. The amount of oppression, it says in Hadith, even this amount of oppression, that a person that is sleeping, I don't know if you're ever sleeping and you had that little sibling, that little cousin, whatever, come and jump on you and wake you up, even that type of oppression, they say, won't happen. That type of dhulm. Someone won't wake you up abruptly. The world will be beautiful. So whenever you get down and you see, oh, they're oppressing the Muslims, they're oppressing the Shias, they killed more Shias, they did more bombings, they did more killing, or you see there's more gunah, there's more sin, eventually it doesn't matter, it's just a matter of time. Maybe it'll take 100 years, maybe this is the last year, or maybe it'll happen tomorrow. I don't know, because they say don't put a time period for it. Be so hopeful in the faraj of Imam Zaman that it can happen right now. And I'm ready for it right now. That is what gives us hope as a society, as followers of Ahlul Bayt, that eventually Imam Mahdi will be victorious. And everything you see here, everything in the world will be under the Mahdawi flag. Imam Zaman will rule the world, and the world will be peaceful, and people will be worshipping Allah, and all this sin is something temporary. So hopefully this was a discussion about the factors of despair, and that we can learn from Imam Hussein alayhi salam how to be more hopeful. Because one of the traits that we haven't learned in the 100 lessons, at least solid lessons from Imam Hussein, one of them is how to always be hopeful, and this is the motor and engine. And I want you, brothers and sisters, to be more hopeful, to work harder, and whatever you do, don't lose hope in your spiritual life, in your personal life, in your relationships. Whatever it is, don't lose hope and be hopeful. I apologize if I said anything wrong these few nights, if I treated anyone unfairly. I apologize for that. Make me halal, inshallah. Tonight is the last night of the lectures. Keep us in the dua. We're going to be now doing musibat for Ahlul Bayt. This is like the salt on top of the food, because without this tawassul, all this talk is just theoretical. We want to actualize and realize our guidance, and that is done through Ahlul Bayt. If we can dim the lights, we'll go to, I like many times to do tawassul to a great individual. You know, shaheed has a great position. Martyr has a great position. He does shafa'at, someone that's shaheed. But Imam Zayn al-Abidin mentions that in hadith, that in the day of judgment, all the martyrs, I want you to imagine whoever was martyred, all the martyrs will have a qibta. Qibta means they wish. They wish they had the position of Hazrat Abbas. It's hadith from Imam Zayn al-Abidin. All the shuhada that are alive, the shuhada are ahya'un. But the highest shaheed we have from Imam Zayn al-Abidin, of course after his brother Hussein, is Hazrat Abbas. One of the scholars was doing ziyarat of Hazrat Abbas, came back and was asking Allah, show me yourself, open my heart to you, allow me to see you, allow me to love you, allow me to know you. And information came to him that whoever we opened their eyes, whoever we opened their heart, basically, it was through that shrine that you're at, we opened it there. The haram of Hazrat Abbas opened their arms because he is the highest of the shuhada. Hazrat Abbas, we said, is the replication or the symbol of Imam Ali in Karbala. His power, his generosity, his kindness is like of Imam Ali. His father is Imam Ali. His mother is Ummul Bani, humble servant of Ahlul Bayt. Fatima was her name. But it is said she would say, don't say my name in front of the family, because Hassan and Hussein and Zainab or Kulthum, when you say Fatima, it reminds them of their mother and they miss their mother. Use this title, call me Ummul Bani, the mother of children. They say that there's such a mother that when everyone, they question Imam Hussein, why are you going to Karbala? Why are you taking your family to Karbala? That she never once questioned Imam Hussein, but turned to her son Abbas, go with Hussein and do not come back without Hussein. This is the mother of Hazrat Abbas, Ummul Bani. Inshallah, one day they can build a shrine for her in Baqi cemetery, inshallah. They come and she's informed that her sons are killed in Medina. They say that you're the one that gives bad news says that your sons are killed. Says, Akhbirni an al-Hussein. Tell me about Hussein. Says, I just said your sons are killed. Says, Akhbirni an al-Hussein. Tell me about Hussein. And then she says, may everyone in this world basically be sacrificed. Tell me about Hussein. So she taught Hazrat Abbas this sincere loyalty to Imam Hussein. How loyal was Hazrat Abbas? It is the day of Ashura. I want you to go to Ashura, to Karbala, go to the day of Ashura. You see that Hazrat Abbas comes to his brother Imam Hussein alayhi salam and is mentioning that my chest is now bothering me. قَدْ ضَاقَ صَدْرِي. My chest is in pain. Hussein, let me fight. I have seen too many people become shaheed. Let me go and fight. Let me show my bravery. لَمَّا رَأَى وَحْدَتَهُ alayhi salam. Ata akha, he came to Hussein when he saw Hussein is all alone. وَقَالَ يَا أَخِي هَلْ مِنْ رُخْصَةٍ. My brother, do I have permission? But it breaks the heart of Imam Hussein to give his brother Abbas permission. And this is one of the parts in Karbala that the Maqtal says that Hussein alayhi salam buka shadidan. He cried severely when he wanted to give permission to Abbas, knowing that when he would give permission to him, his dear brother would never come back. ثم قال يا أخي, but my brother, أنت صاحب لوائي, you are my flag bearer. وإذا مضيت تفرق عسكري. But if when you leave, my army will be separated, because Abbas is one army himself. He's not one, he's one army by himself. There, Imam Hussein alayhi salam in this maqtal says, but before you go to battle, فَاطْلُبْ لَهَؤُلَاءِ الْأَطْفَالِ قَلِيلًا مِنَ الْمَاءِ. Go and bring a little bit, Imam Hussein says, قَلِيلًا مِنَ الْمَاءِ. Go bring a little bit of water for my family. I apologize, Imam of the age. How much water does Ali Asghar need? How much water does a 6-month-old need? Those that have kids in the family have seen it. Does he maybe need a tablespoon of water? Maybe a teaspoon of water? Don't you see that Ali Asghar is doing taladhi? Do you know what taladhi means? Taladhi, they say, is when a fish comes out of water. And you see the mouth of that fish come out of water, it opens and closes, needing water. That is what they call as taladhi. When somebody is so thirsty that their mouth is opening and closing. That Imam Hussein says, don't you see that my child, my baby is doing taladhi of atash? His tiny little lips are opening and closing. Abbas, go and bring Ali Asghar some water. Go and bring Rabab some water. Go and bring Bibi Sukaina, go bring them some water, because children cannot bear the thirst. Some say in the day of Ashura, in that time period, the flasks that have been dripping of water, there is some little bit of wetness on the dirt. That Allah, that the family of Imam Hussein alayhi salam would open up their stomachs, place their stomachs on the cool sand, so they would forget about their thirst. Abbas, go bring the water. So his mission now is different, because his mission is not to show his bravery and to bring down the champions that he would have, what he would have done if his hands were not tied in Karbala. But his mission now is to bring water for the family of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Very bravely he goes and fights his way through and reaches one of the banks of the Euphrates. There in the Maqtal it says he wants to come back and he wants to bring down, see this water. Imagine someone that didn't have water for 2 or 3 days. He reaches, says, فَلَمَّا أَرَادَ أَنْ يَشْرُبَ غُرْفَ مِنَ الْمَاءِ. Now he wanted to have a little drink from this water, maybe a scoop from the hand. Clear water is the river water from the banks of the Farad. ذكر عطش الحسين وأهل البيت. He thought of the thirst of Imam Hussein and his children. فرمى الماء, and he came and threw back this water in the Euphrates. He could not bear having water while Imam Hussein, his master, was thirsty. He cannot bear having water and quenching his thirst while the little children are thirsty. وَحَمَلَهُ, so therefore وَمُلَأَ الْقِرْبَ, and he takes his flasks and puts it in the river. وَحَمَلَهَا عَلَى كِتْفِهِ الْيَمَنِ, he puts it on his right shoulder, hoping to bring back water. Maybe the children now are saying that Abbas is going to bring us water now. I'm sure that he's going to be successful. Their hope was Abbas. So Hazrat Abbas very fastly comes back, and his mission is to bring back this flask of water. And he's taking this, فَحَمَلَ الْقَرْبَ عَلَى, he's taking the water on his right arm. فَحَارَبَهُمْ حَتَّى ضَرَبَهُ نَوْفَلَ الْأَزْرَقِ, and Nawfal comes and hits Abbas on the right hand, عَلَى يَدَهُ الْيُمْنَى فَقَطَعَهَا. Those that have done ziyarat of Hazrat Abbas, you know, you go to his shrine to do ziyarat, correct? But there's also 2 other places you should do ziyarat, and that is, one, you should do ziyarat of his right arm, which is in a different place in the bazaar. You should do ziyarat of his left arm, which is in a different place. They cut his right arm, but Abbas has hope. He says, I will bring this water no matter what. Places it on his left side. فحمل القرب على كتفه الأيسر فضربه نوفل فقطع يده اليسرى بالزند. And his left arm becomes severed And where is he going to take the water now? With his teeth. فَحَمَلَهُ الْقِرْبَ بِالْأَسْنَانِ. He's taking that without arms, the flask of water towards the tent. فَجَاءَ سَهْمٌ فَأَصَابَ الْقِرْبَ. Now an arrow comes and hits the qirba. وَأُرِيقَ مَاءَهُ. And the water spills from this flask. ثُمَّ جَاءَ سَهْمٌ آخر فَأَصَابَ الصَّدْرَ. Then another arrow comes. I don't know, was it a trident arrow? Was it a poison arrow? I don't know what type of arrow was this to take out Hazrat Abbas. And now he falls. فَانْقَلَبَ عَنْ فَرْسِهِ. He falls from his horse. But how does a person fall when he does not have hands to block his face, to block his fall? How does such a person falls? And Hazrat Abbas must have fallen face first on the ground, just like his father Imam Ali alayhi salam when he fell, when Ibn Muljam hit him. Just how Imam Hussein soon will fall and he will say La ilaha illallah. He'll be repeating the dhikr of Allah, fi Allah wa fi sabilillah wa ala millati Rasulullah, and he will fall from his horse soon. Now it's Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and he sees his dear brother Hazrat Abbas, and he cries out to Hussein alayhi salam. Maybe he wants to see Hussein one more time. وَصَاحَ. Saha means sayha. He cries, screams. إِلَىٰ أَخِيهِ الْحُسَيْنَ أَدْرِكْنِي. Hussein, come and save me, Hussein. Come towards me, Hussein. فَلَمَّا أَتَى رَآهُ سَرِيعًا. Sari'an means when a person is basically giving life. There's blood everywhere. And Imam Hussein alayhi salam sees his brother. It's the last moments of his life. فَبَكَى. Hussein begins to cry. وَقَالَ الْحُسَيْنِ الْآنِ انْكَسَرَ ظَهْرِي. Now my back has become broken. Inna lillah, inna ilayhi raji'un. Matam al-Hussein. Thank you.
This world is so dark, serving you is light, until my last breath, for you I will strive. Hussein is my pulse, he keeps me alive, the breath in my lungs, he helps me to thrive. Like there's no day, for you I will cry, calling out Ya Hussein, till the day that I die. Abul Fadl gave his right and his left. Now you see him marching towards his death. Hear how he comes you, hear how he calls you with his last breath. Hope is leaving, like the water is now seeping. Hope is leaving, hear the children are now grieving. Hope is leaving, hear the children are now grieving. Hussein, 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 Mawla Hussein, 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 Mawla Hussein, 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 Mawla Hussein, 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 Mawla Hussein. حسين 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 مولا حسين 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 دنيانا ظلام والخدمة ضوان ما يبكي حرام يطبري تهوى ما عند حسين آخر تلوى تاليها يصير والماكو سوى من حق أهيم محبوب رحيم ما يرضى يجي يمشي لهواه ما حد مثل قلبك حنين ورحمتك عسى بيخ يا مخدتي زل دمعتك وانطانا خيمته وطاحت خيمتك حسين 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 مولا حسين 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 مولا حسين together حسين 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 مولا حسين 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 مولا حسين 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 مولا حسين 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 your death fills my mind it drives me insane you gave us freedom yet Zainab's in chains without you Hussein life is not the same through we are so far on my lips is your name my heart and my soul is where you remain you're always my king forever you'll remain and Ruqayya saw your head on a plate and on her lap she wiped tears from your face see your princess how she's fallen from grace ash fills the air as her hand is stroking your hair ash fills the air and that's her only prayer ash fills the air and that's her only prayer Hussein 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 Mawla Hussein 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 Mawla Hussein 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 Mawla Hussein 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 look how I'm so lost can't see in the dark you brighten my life you light me a path when it's so dark you light like a star bringing me near though I'm so far you heal my pain each and every scar when I'm drowning you become my ark and they took your turban clothes and fingers and house see I and they took your turban clothes and fingers and now see how the smoke stays and lingers can you feel how this love hurts that sings hers Zayn Zainab's alone or has been lost, can she go home? Zainab's alone, you lay broken without a dome. Zainab's alone, you lay broken without a dome. Hussein, Hussein, Hussein. Hussein, 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 Mawla Hussein, 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 Mawla Hussein, Hussein, Hussein. دنيانا ظلام والخدمة روان، ما يبكي حرام يطبري تهوان، ما عند حسين آخر تلوان، تاليه يصير والماك صوان، من حق أهيب محبوب رحيم، ما يرضى يجي يمشي لهواه، ما حد مثل قلبك حنين ورحمتك، عسلمك يا مخدة تنزل دمعتك، وانطانا خيمته وطاحت خيمتك. حسين 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 ولا حسين حسين حسين، حسين 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 ولا حسين حسين حسين، حسين 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 ولا حسين حسين حسين. Together حسين حسين مولا حسين حسين، حسين 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 مولا حسين حسين حسين، حسين 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 مولا حسين حسين حسين. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
زيارة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب، السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى أم المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي المجتبى، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين بن علي الشهيد بكربلاء، السلام عليك يا علي بن حسين زين العابدين، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر، السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق، السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر القادم، السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا، السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الجواد، السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد الهادي، السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي العسكري، السلام عليك يا حجة بن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، السلام عليك يا خابة الإمام، يا إمام وإمام الإنس والجان، عجل على ظهورك، عجل على ظهورك، عجل على ظهورك يا ابن الحسن، يا ابن الحسن، عجل على ظهورك، عجل على ذحورك. السلام عليكم وجميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. صلوات.
We have somebody who is sick and in need of our prayers. Let us recite 5 times the Mayujib for them. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ 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 اللهم اشف كل مريض بحق محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. And as everybody leaves, please take the niyaz and don't forget to support us with your donation.